One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. It's the 14th of November, 2008, and an expansion has just been released, which means that it is my sworn duty to be back on the air. Something like that, anyway. That's the kind of explanation that I gave myself to get me motivated for the show. And what a show we have coming up for you today. Coming on the show today, we shall be talking about WoW, a social phenomenon. Is it? Is it not? We shall see. As well as first steps into Northrend, my initial impressions, and whether or not I'm actually enjoying the expansion so far. Well, we shall see. I'd also like to know what Blizzard has to do to succeed in the future, and my concerns as to the future of the game, based on what I've seen so far in Wrath, as well as the one and only Illusion of Choice, which will be coming up later on in the show. That's the Illusion of Choice. You'll get to email in your requests for the ending topic of the show, which you can do by emailing themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Yeah. It's good to be back. I haven't really talked much, I guess, on air about what's actually been happening and the reasons that I took everything off air. I mean, I guess you guys probably already know everything about that if you've been reading my blog posts and stuff like that, and if you have, well, that's good, because at least you'll understand the basics behind the issues that I've actually encountered over the past month or so. But all I can say is that it's unfortunate to have to run into a situation that you can define as soul-crushing, and that's probably, one of maybe 2 times in my life that I've ever run into anything like that. But what I will say is that, and this is to anyone else that runs into a situation that gets them so down that you think it's not really worth it anymore, that the best thing you can possibly do is to stand right up again and get back fighting, because to be honest, if you're not doing that, then you're gonna get depressed and you're gonna sit down and you're gonna just wallow in your own self-pity more than anything. And yeah, you know what, I got a lot to pity myself about in this case, but that's not the point. That's not what people want to hear. There's a lot of people out there who've been very, very supportive over the past few weeks, not only of me, but of Jen, and that is very much appreciated. You have no idea how much that means to me. You guys have been fantastic. You guys have been stellar dealing with my silliness over the past month or so, with my overly emotional state. And to be honest, you're the best. It's really that simple. So a round of applause for every single one of you. Thank you very, very much. It is about time I got back on the horse, so that is what I am going to be doing today. Right, wow. The launch of Wrath. Well, let me tell you a little bit of a story. I actually went down to Asda, funnily enough, which is the only place that I could get Wrath in this town at midnight on launch day, which is a bit crazy. I thought, this is kind of weird. I wonder how many WoW players there actually are in Bolden Colliery, and yes, I've given out the town that everyone already knew anyway. Who cares? So I went down at Asda and not expecting really to find anyone, so I started wandering. I wandered in the door and I saw a line of people. I'm thinking, this is a little bit unusual. And they were all lined up at the customer service counter, which is the little kiosk at the front of the store, which usually sells cigarettes, lottery tickets, and other things. I can't remember what else they sell. Nothing particularly important. A couple of magazines, I think. But anyway. So I'm thinking, well, obviously, everyone is really, really, really in need of a fag. And yes, in this country, fag means cigarette before you get onto me with your angry emails like, with Proposition 8 he's being so offensive, and yeah. I don't support Proposition 8, guys. Keep fighting. Anyway, no politics on this show. So, I went down there and I saw this line of people, and I started walking past them until I realised, hang on a minute, if there's a line of people on this night, that can only be really for one reason. So I turn around again, and there's like 30 people standing there. And there's, you know what struck me? What struck me the first time I saw these people is like how normal these people looked. And it sounds bizarre, it really does. For me, of all people who's been touting the social values of World of Warcraft, to say that it was odd to see all these normal people, but bear in mind, this is my hometown. This isn't like America, No, this is not BlizzCon. This is not all of these other places that I've visited, the University of Advancing Technology and all these other places in the world that I've visited, where I don't expect that. I don't expect the kind of group of people that plays WoW to look normal. That's something that other countries do. That's something that other groups have managed to pull off. It's like StarCraft being a national sport in Korea. Like, over here, that would be ridiculous. This is Britain. Britain doesn't go for this kind of thing. And yet, for some reason, I look at them and I'm surprised, because there's like a 65-year-old guy in the queue. And there's a bunch of women. There's men of all ages, all colours. Literally, all colours. You had Asians there, you had black guys there, you had Indian guys there, Pakistanis, and like, I didn't think about it that way. Until that point, I never thought about it that way, and that is really sad, to be honest. It really is. It's so sad that I didn't think of WoW to be such a cosmopolitan world that it would bring in from my own hometown, the town which I don't have a lot of regard for, to be honest. You know, it's an old pit town. It doesn't have a lot going for it. It's kind of your average northern town. There's crime, there's poverty, there's all that kind of thing, but I never expected that, and that really caught me off guard. So I get in this queue, and I'm just standing there, kind of waiting for things, listening to Churasas on my MP3 player, just waiting for the opportunity to pick up my copy of Wrath. And it's funny because the guys at the till, well, I'd say guys, there were two like 45, 50-year-old women actually serving it as cashiers, and the people that went up to there, they weren't asking for Wrath of the Lich King, they were just saying 1 please, or 2 please. It's like some kind of crazy drug kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I'll have an ounce of spunky backpack. You know, it sounds so illicit. It's great. But anyway, I get about halfway down the queue, and this one kind of perfectly normal-looking guy gets his copy, and he screams at the top of his lungs, "For the Horde!" and bolts out of the door. And the best thing about that is that the only 2 people that didn't get it were the people behind the counter. And everybody else in that area of the store understood it. And I found that bizarre. And I found that encouraging and uplifting. And why? Well, name one other time that such a geeky hobby, it's such a geeky hobby, let's face it, you know, we're all a bunch of nerds in the eyes of the world. So, you got such a geeky, nerdy hobby, and we outnumber the guys that don't get it. It's like we've now got our own secret cult, but our secret cult is 11 million strong, and it's all over the place. And the media's getting a hold of it, and they did. The BBC got a hold of it. All the local radio stations got a hold of it. Radio 1, even the TV stations, they got a hold of it. You had a massive launch in London with television crews, 5,000, 6,000 people, all lining up, waiting for hours and hours and hours to get Wrath of the Lich King. It's an expansion for an online video game, and yet for some reason, everyone's in it. Everyone's in on it. They want to find out what's going on. Does that not strike you as not only bizarre and kind of a little bit worrying, but also just a little bit thrilling? That's how it works for me. It strikes me as thrilling that a hobby like that could be brought to such a level of acceptance. And for once, we're not the butt of the joke. It sounds kind of pathetic, you know. I mean, most of you, I would imagine, have seen or otherwise experienced the kind of bullying and segregation and ostracization. Is that even a word? Ostracization. We'll go with it. We'll go with ostracization for that today. That is the word of the day, and as a result, we get this noise. Anyway, I suppose you've seen it or experienced it, or at least seen it on TV. It's very stereotypical, the kind of MMO player stereotype. It's never been encouraged by the media as a whole. Even what we laugh at with stuff like Make Love Not Warcraft, the South Park episode, we laughed at it, we found it funny, but, you know, it did perpetuate a horrible stereotype. And it's continued to be around, and yet now it just seems to me that the tides are turning. It seems to me the stereotype is going out of the window because it's becoming so widespread and so universally accepted, and our geeky jokes and our memes are breaking out of their normal obscurity. No, you've got Rickrolling being common, you've got lolcats, you've got all this other stupid stuff that has originated from all manner of different places. And it's becoming mainstream, and it has this mainstream appeal, and people are getting the idea that geeky humour is actually funny, which is not something we've really had before. You might decry the fact that the mainstream is getting hold of stuff like that, and they've run lolcats into the ground, they've run rickrolls into the ground, they've run epic into the ground, you know, all kinds of different things. All of these things which originated on certain boards whose names we shall not speak on these airwaves. And they've become mainstream, and you can complain and whine that they're ruining everything, but does it not, at least in some area of your heart, actually come to you and say, isn't it cool that people are starting to get this? You know, I've found this funny for however many years, and now, you know what? People are starting to understand why I think it's funny, and why I think this stuff's cool, and they're starting to be a little bit more accepting of stuff that is fun, regardless of whether or not it has a negative, outdated social stereotype attached to it. That's so important. I think it really is. I really do think it's so important, particularly amongst younger people, to actually put this idea forward that you can be whatever you want to be, and you can like whatever you want to like, and it doesn't matter, and you're not going to get ostracized for it, you're not going to get picked on for it, you're not going to get bullied for it, you're not going to be mocked by anybody for it, because for some reason, this one geeky hobby, you know, and Blizzard is responsible for this, has broken through into the mainstream. And a game about dragons, lich kings, undead, magic, goblins, gnomes, dwarves, and all the kind of things that used to be associated with 35-year-old something neckbeards in their parents' basement with a copy of D&D 4th edition, is becoming popular and becoming accepted. And it's not just about the geeky hobbies. It's about accepting what is fun and accepting something because it is fun, not because it's got all of this negativity attached to it, through whatever reason. And to me, that is maturity. It's society maturing through the acceptance of hobbies which were previously considered to be immature. Now, this is the kind of thing that people thought back in the day. If you were over 18 and you were playing games, you were considered to be a little bit odd, a little bit weird. You know, why aren't you concentrating on your priorities? And yet, over the past 5 or so years, it's started to change, and WoW has actually been the breakthrough product in that respect. It's people started to buy consoles and stuff like that, but with WoW, it's an unashamedly geeky thing. Unashamedly. There's no measure that you could take that would say, at the end, that WoW is not a geeky hobby. And yet, it's become accepted. It's just such a turning point. I'm stunned by it. I'm thrilled by it. And I think it does show that society is growing up when it comes to the consumption and acceptance of different media products. No matter what they are. So, let's see this advance. Let's see this go on to television, radio, music. Let's see power metal become universally accepted. Rhapsody, have Rhapsody in Fire be played on the radio. People buying science fiction fantasy books again. Science fiction, fantasy television shows being bankrolled and put out there. And let's see Blizzard actually take part in that, because they are partially responsible. They really are partially responsible for this breakthrough, in my opinion. And I do believe it is a breakthrough. You might think that maybe I'm going a little bit out of my mind here, but no, I really do genuinely believe it is a breakthrough and a change in attitude. And it's good. WoW has become a social phenomenon. It's ludicrous to think about it. A game that maybe even 5 years ago, a year before it was released, and certainly 10 years ago plus, would never have been socially accepted for some inexplicable reason. Maybe because it's just so accessible, or it was so well marketed, or it's so well put together, easy to play, that all these people from all these different walks of life get sucked into it, and as a direct result of that, it's no longer the domain of basement dwellers. It's no longer the domain of neckbeards, 450-pound ham beasts, whatever you want to call them. It's the domain of normal, everyday people that just want to have a bit of fun on the internet. And what on earth is wrong with that? Someone tell me, what is wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. And it doesn't matter what the theme is. It doesn't matter that we're dealing with all of these silly, crazy things that used to be attributed to childhood fantasies. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's a place for people to come together online and have a bit of fun. And that is never a bad thing, because it's a social phenomenon, because it is social. Simple as that. If you don't want to thank Blizzard for anything, I completely understand. I mean, come on, I've criticised Blizzard for all manner of things, but to be honest, I think we do owe them something in that respect. This is not coming from the words of a fanboy, I'm a critic. I criticise them all the time and will no doubt criticise them later in the show. But I think there's every now and again, especially when we have a big launch like this, we have to sit back and we have to think about it for a minute and think, how did it get to this point, and which company was the driving force behind it? And the answer, of course, is Blizzard Entertainment. You can be thankful for it, you can criticise them for it, but out of all of the achievements that they've come up with and all of the achievements that they personally have gained, I think that is the single greatest thing they've ever done, and that is what they will be remembered for. My name is Total Biscuit, this is Blue Please here on WoW Radio. Time for some Churasas. Cursed be Iron. I'll be right back after this with my initial impressions of Wrath of the Lich King. Enjoy.